Welcome, everyone. We are back with another DPL Scuffcast. I am Zombie Bacon, and I am here with Mr. Donut. Donut, how are you doing?
That was such a weird transition.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm doing.
Amazing. But more important than Donut, we have Zach here with us today. Special guest. How are you doing, Zach?
Guys, how are y'all?
We're great.
We're doing great. Yeah. So we have a very special not guest, so to say, member of
guest.
guest, the
Guest.
guest. Oh, that sounds so weird. Zach, Xenoscore Gek, the senior artist over at Giant Enemy Crab, and the head honcho, I would say the head honcho, or one of the head honchos when it comes to everything you see in the game. You know, as they create. So, how you doing with us? How you doing?
Good. It's very, very busy right now as we are heavily pushing towards a really big patch for y'all with the character customization that's being worked on right now, which is a lot relying on me. So my days have been long and work has been kind of crunchy. So just trying to get you guys a lot of really, really great content. It's pretty impressive to see the game and how different it feels when you get to play with different characters that aren't just stock standard. So it's been pretty awesome last couple of months working on this stuff, but it's still a long road ahead to get it ready for you guys. So,
well, that is very exciting. I think a lot of people are, very excited when it comes to customization and when it comes to really, just being able to create their own character and all the hype that's being around progression and blah 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 blah. But let's more humble roots. A lot of people were wondering, how'd you get into this position? How did you, Xenoscore, get as the senior artist? Because I want to draw well, but I don't want to practice. How do I get good?
How do you get good? Well, art, like all things, is something that requires a lot of practice. It's a lot like trying to learn a musical instrument or, running a 4x100 really, really fast, right? You have to practice at it. And that's kind of when I was in high school many, many years ago. I always liked drawing and doing that sort of stuff. And I loved drawing characters. And I kind of, took all the art classes that I possibly could. And through high school, it became more and more apparent that I really wanted to do art as a profession and less anything else because I found a lot of enjoyment out of that. And my parents always said, hey, do the thing that makes you happy, because if you have to do it 24/7 or if you have to do that for an actual job, don't you want to do something you enjoy and have fun doing than going to a job that you don't like? So I really decided to push that angle. And at the time I was looking at that time, the internet was still on dial-up and all that sort of fun stuff. So I logged onto the internet because my mom asked me, like, where do you want to go to get educated about, like, making art? Because games was something I had always enjoyed. I kind of always had that as a dream of, I want to make video games. So I typed into the old Google machine on the old dial-up internet and looked for a school that had a game art degree, right? A bachelor's in art that I could get, and then have the piece of paper that said I can make games, because I had no idea how games were made or how to make art for games. I had an idea of, hey, they use programs to make the 3D, and they use Photoshop. I knew that at least. One of my close friends at the time actually liked to really mod Quake. And so I sat down with him for a couple of months, just crash coursing on, because he had kind of understood the nuances of how to, like, mod games. And at that time, it was a mystery on how to do it for the most part. And so him and I worked together, and we retextured a bunch of characters, and he showed me Photoshop and that sort of stuff. And so then I ended up going to the school and learned a lot about 3D programs and stuff. And it's funny, the the first 3D course I ever had, they were like, "Hey, learn how to navigate in 3D." And I think that's one of the hardest thing to get your head around when you first start doing 3D, is that just navigating your workspace. Like when you first start working in 3D, don't even worry about making an object or anything. Just get really comfortable with moving the camera. What do the buttons do, right? It's just, don't jump in and be like, I need to start making a character like day one. Just be like, let me just get really comfortable with this program so that I can, the next day when I log into it, get a little bit further in progress. So, but man, my first 3D course, I got done with it. They were like, okay, here's 3D Studio Max and make a box and do all this sort of stuff. And it's like, okay, make an object out of primitives, right? Like a car or something. And like, I got done with that course, and I walked out, and I was walking home like, I don't think I can do this. I have no idea what's happening. It was so overwhelming of just like, well, and my teacher was also showing us how to manipulate verts, because like we got the making primitive boxes and stuff, and he's like, let me show you how games are really made. And then we started messing with like the edges and vertices of the objects, and like, look, you can move them in 3D, not just make a cylinder, you can make a character out of it. And that's what kind of blew my mind. And so, but the next day I walked back in, I'm like, you know what, I can do this. And so that kind of set me on the path for where am now, right? So, I mean, I went through school, I was in the computer lab every day, and that was one of the things that we kind of realized about kind of afterwards, once we had graduated, like the class that I was in. Those of us that had spent every basically waking hour that we could in the computer lab throwing ideas back and forth and techniques and what we had learned, and just like group thinking on how to do this, that group of 5 guys that I was with at the time, when we were in the computer labs and stuff, we were the ones that got jobs right out of school, right? Because it is very hard to get a job in the game industry. If you're not in the industry, and even if you lose your job in the industry, it takes a lot of time and investment to get back into the industry. So it's because the challenge is when you're looking for jobs in the games industry, it's not just you that's looking for a job, it's me. There's people that are, really high tier professionals that are like, I want to change positions, or I want to move to a different company or something, right? And so it's really hard for new talent to get like pulled into the industry, and that's the real challenge. And that's why it's really important, if this is an avenue that you want to pursue, is that you really have to put in the time. You can't just go in and go, I like video games, I want to make them, but I don't really want to put the time in, and because it's just the video game industry, I should be able to get a job. It is a very, very cutthroat and difficult industry to work in. And that's the one thing that I walked into knowing that it was going to be really hard. I assumed it was going to be that difficult because it's video games. Everybody wants to make them. And I chose the hardest route, which is art. The art side of things is the most competitive part of the games industry. There's people that do special effects, there's people that do code. A lot of those jobs are kind of almost a gimme. If you know how to do it, you can probably get in pretty quickly doing those sorts of things. Or UI. A lot of companies are always looking for those positions, which is UI, special effects, and code, right? Engineering. Those are normally the guaranteed positions, but the art ones are the hardest, because everybody wants to, every artist wants to make art, and specifically characters. That is one of the hardest positions to get into in the games industry, because again, everybody that wants to do art normally just wants to make the characters. So, and that's where it's like, if you decide on being an environment artist, right, that is, as long as you find enjoyment out of doing that, it can make it easier targeting a position that you'd want to be in. So how I ended up getting into Jack? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So that was very informative. I have now my plan of going up an indie studio and taking my first shot and saying if I can launder some money from EA is gone. But I mean, we you talk a lot about the characters, and the
Mm-hmm.
character art and really a lot of that. But a big part, I guess you could say, of FPS's due process, is that of seeing what you're shooting. And I kind of want, and a lot of people, oh, you're an artist, so you make all the things, but what do you really do at GEC besides just making all the things?
Sure. Well, let me preface the previous thing too before I get to that. So how did I get to GEC, right? That was kind of the other part of the question, kind of like going through just the history of like how hard it is to make games and getting into games. How did I get into Giant Enemy Crab? It's kind of funny. It's basically how everybody else found due process. I watched the Node videos. That was basically the first thing that brought me into the whole ecosystem for that. And
So
from
you're just
there, I
one of
kind of,
us.
I basically, yeah. I mean, I saw it and I was like, that looks really interesting. And then I saw their art demo that they had posted. I'm like, I love this art style, right? And they were looking for a senior artist at the time. And, I've been in the industry now at that point for about, I want to say 10 years plus, somewhere in there. So I ended up figuring, like 12 to 14 years, I think it was around when I applied. And so I was like, hey, I think I could really contribute to this game. I felt that my skills kind of fit what they wanted. I felt like the project was something I really, really like. I'd been working on projects a lot of different games, but they were never games that I personally wanted to play. They were games that I enjoyed and I love making the art for them, but they were not like I would play this game every day. And so it was finally kind of like I'm at this point in my career. I get to get my senior artist title if I go there, and I get to work on a game that I absolutely would love to play day in and day out, And that's kind of why I took the job, just because it was a dream project for me. And so that's kind of why I jumped in with Giant Enemy Crab. I sent an application. I didn't expect them to respond back to me. They were in Seattle and I was in Austin at the time. But they got back to me. They sent me an art test. And this is one of the hard things too about the video games industry is they always, you can apply to different jobs and then the company will send you an art test to prove that you can do the work. Well, a lot of the times it's like a week's task. And in that time, you are working on this art test. You are not applying to other places. You're working on this test, And it's crazy to me that like our industry, the games industry, is one of the only few that requires you to take a literal test for a position that requires you to not look for any other jobs at the same time because you're so dang busy. So it's interesting, that dichotomy of, I get to apply to this one job when they offer me the pre-position to even get an interview. I have to take a test, which it floors me on that, right? So yeah. So anyway, they ended up hiring me and bringing me on board. And so what do I do at Giant Enemy Crab? Was kind of like the next question, kind of transitioning in on that. So
level.
Yeah, so I do a lot of my main job is kind of doing a lot of previs work. I mean, I do a bulk load of work for environment, or whatever is really needed, but a lot of my position comes with, hey, do this exploration of how to make this in the game, right? V-Man or Valdus, he does like a concept or an idea, or they're like, hey, we want this object and this is what we want it to look like, and then I will either do an exploratory model or texture, or or build out the product that we want it to look like, and then everybody can kind of look at that as a template and then build from that. Like Dome is a good example of. This was kind of the first time we did this. Was I built out a giant pre-visualization atlas, which was, here's this texture, this is what concrete looks like, and here's what the sand in on the beach is going to look like, and here's what here's what the stone in runes is going to be, the color scheme and the color values and everything. and kind of tried to set that up as much as possible to give everybody an idea of this is what this needs to look like, and this is what like this is what chrome or metal or wood or grass or whatever these pieces were, trying to get an idea of what the level is before we even make anything, and then that helps people be able to build the textures and everything that exists in the level based off of that. So that would be a really good example of that sort of stuff. Or like Factory, Jesse was like, hey, we've got this whole background, the giant buildings that are all in the background. Jesse and I, he's like, well, we're going to work together on this. And so he gave me like half of the assets and he took the other half. And then we kind of in tandem, learned and painted and, just shared our the assets that we were creating and tried to like get a really cohesive look based around like this background that he had built out, for Factory. And it was one of the funnest things I think that I had gotten to work on with one of the other people at the studio, was working on that Factory background. Like him and I still talk about like how much fun it was, because we got to just collab together and we just were riffing off of each other and throwing ideas back and forth, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, a lot of it is just, hey, we need this object, make this object for us, right? Especially for levels, a lot of times it's like, make this cube, glorified cube making, right? Make this object, it's going to be a blocker, it does X, it needs to do Y, come up with the damage states for it and that sort of stuff for level stuff. And then for the character customization stuff, like, as that's what I'm working on right now, it's like, hey, we want hair. Hey, we want a different set of glasses, right? Oh, we need facial hair, or we want a entire new like torso outfit or leg outfit kind of thing, and or we want gloves or something, and then we're just going through and building out those assets for those systems.
That's really the whole, I would say, the whole meat of it, that everyone's really excited about this this new update, the customization update. It's been so favorably said, I think, since it's been the most hype of update since Dome. Zombie, you think maybe before that?
Well, the only thing I think that has been more hyped up than customization was gunplay. I think, in my opinion, but also I think I have a different perspective on that versus Donut just having kind of up here in DPL. That was all we talked about leading up to that. We didn't care about Dome, partly because at the time I didn't have to worry about playing on Dome, because by the time Dome came out, it was finals of season 2. So all I remember is like gunplay, and then after that is just anything anyone has talked about is customization, particularly in the I think the more casual realm of the game in terms of people to just enjoy it, because the art style is so unique. And actually, I did want to ask you about that, Zach. Coming into this, is the one thing I see people talk about this game the most without having played it is how unique the art style is. And I know you mentioned that drew your eye to that, but how do you, being someone who's experienced in the game industry, how do you fit yourself into the new aesthetics? Is that something that you find enjoyable, like keeps you on your toes, or is it more of a challenge than it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when you start working at a new studio, and this is something that kind of happened, is like, it's the thing about art that's the real challenge about being an artist in the games industry is you have to be really flexible in your style, right? Especially if you're doing stylized work, which this game is very stylized. And so it's about being able to quickly acclimate yourself into the workflow of what are you making. And that's one of the difficulties in the game industry just across it in general, is an artist can come on, and if they don't pick up the nuances of how something's made, like if I got hired at Blizzard and I need to make Overwatch, there's a specific style to the characters that they make. I can't make photorealistic characters and then put them into Overwatch, right? Like they have a way of making something, right? That and a look that you need to hit for you to be an effective artist for that game. And it's the same thing with ours. And granted, it's a little bit, I don't want to say simpler, but like it is a little bit easier of a task to build a amount of detail that's based off of the pixel art style, which that just makes it easier for us because we have a small art team, right? We've got 4 artists at the studio, right? Really, like 4 the artists that actually make physical things that go into the game. So if you're really thinking about that and you look at the breadth of amount of work that we have in this game, it's pretty impressive and just shows the talent of the team and how quickly they can work. And that's also just due to the fact that the style is the way that it is, which makes it allows us to be able to create a lot of assets pretty quickly. The challenge really is the hand painting of a lot of the textures. We don't generate anything. We're not using like a substance program that just allows you to generate I'm making metal and then it just does it for you. We have to do a little bit of that through hand painting, and we do have some atlases that we can pull from, but a lot of time it is a hand painted affair, which does require a little bit of time, but the investment is not as much as you would in, say, like a God of War. Like me making a character in God of War would probably take months of making, like Kratos and doing everything that's in like one of the new versions of that game, compared to, a character that I'm making for this game takes around a good solid week and a couple of days of just straight work. So there's a big difference between that in terms of just like how in depth and difficult it is to build one of the like high res characters of like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare or something like that. So it definitely makes it so that we can rapidly prototype and build stuff out and get it into the game much, much quicker at a faster clip, which means we can have a smaller team of artists and be able to create a good amount of content still.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't really understand, like how long it takes to make a game or all the effort, And so I at least know before kind of coming to this community, I was like, yes, it takes effort, whatever, but they can slap together a new gun skin or a new gun and who knows how long. But you also forget that that's a company of however many hundred people.
Yeah. Those other games have. I mean, they have, for the Call of Duty franchise, they have like 4 different studios. They've got 4 studios that are rotating, making art and stuff for that game, which are 200 employees probably a piece, 200 to 300 employees. And then they have like 4 satellite studios that are building content for it. So you have the main ones building the game, and then you have other studios that are building content, right? There's the support studios for the main studios. So you're talking about like thousands of employees for that amount of like polish and detail and work and stuff, right? Through multiple, because they're trying to do it at this clip of, a game a year or whatever. So I mean, it just it requires a lot of man hours, right? And that's the hard part about our studio is we only have so many people working on it, which means we have a limited amount of man hours, right? You can only have so much time in a day to do a thing. And so if you want to have a life outside of just making art all the time, right? And so you only get X amount of hours per week. And so when you have a small team, what does that mean? It means it takes a little bit longer for stuff to get done. Because, while we can generate stuff and build stuff and code things, you can only do it so fast. And when you only have a handful of people working on a project, right? When you only have a team that's about 20 people, tops, that's across the entire studio. So in terms of devs, you got like 12, 13 people working on this project. It's a big task. So it just goes to show you just how talented a lot of these people working here are to be able to put together as much as we have with the size of studio that we have. I still get a kick out of the line that Shroud said when he was first playing it on that release, when he asked Alex, he's like, how many people are working on this game? All condescending. And he's like 18. And he goes, oh, like he was expecting like 100, like it's a handful of people making a game that's way above, in terms of quality and just overall look and style and just, I do feel like this game punches up a lot, from where, the fact that it's this very indie game that does have a publisher backing it, but it's still an indie game in at its core. So, and to see the polish and just, and to go into what Zombie is talking about with like the big features that was like the hype thing was like we had Gunplay 2.0 come out, and then literally like by the end of the week, that's when Dome came out, right? So it wasn't even time to get hyped. It was like bam, bam, right? Both of these things got put out. So, and it just was the fact that Dome was not quite ready, for it to be put out. They were supposed to get released simultaneously, but we just it was just off by 7 days, right? But still, that's just one of those things where it's like, it's still impressive, again, at the clip at which this project in particular, and all the gimmick that it has in randomly, generated level or procedurally put together levels, that you get to play on, with these tile sets and stuff, is still pretty impressive.
Absolutely, and it does keep it fresh. And I think, you did bring up the fact that yes, you guys do have a publisher, but also that publisher is Annapurna, which is also known for its indie games. And I think you do an amazing job. But speaking of the level design, we just had Lawless up here in DPL. And
Mhm.
I want to know how. I hope you watched it, Zach, but I want to know, how does it feel to watch people break your stuff every once in a while? Like, just absolutely, like, just not use it in the way it's intended to be used. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
parkouring on rocks and stuff.
yeah, for sure. I think the difficulty that kind of stems from some of this stuff too is I get the way that the workflow kind of is like, it's like, make a barrel, right? Let's just use a simple object, right? Make this barrel. And I'm like, okay, so as an artist, right, my assumption when I'm told to make a barrel is the barrel's gonna be standing up straight. So I can account for that, right? I can say the barrel's X high, which means I need to make it this many units so that players can't jump on it, right? Well, I'm not taking into account the fact that, then our level designers go, I'm going to turn this barrel on its side for flavor. Well, now when you do that, you've now created a stair step, right? I as the artist did not intend it to be used that way, but then when it's an object is used in a manner that wasn't intended, or it's placed in a way or modified in a way that I had not calculated for, that's when we can kind of get into trouble for I can get on top of this thing, right? Or I can get into the roof of this map or whatever, right? And it's really hard for us to be able to, especially on the art side, to have any impact, right? So
Yeah.
it really does ultimately come down to just making smart level placement choices and making really good clusters that are much more airtight. A big struggle in Dome was the rocks got scaled. I made rocks a certain size, and then people started changing the scale of them, and I can't modify. Once I build the art piece, it's made, right? And what happens after that is kind of out of my control and how to do anything. So yes, it can be very frustrating to see things that are not working, or maybe I built it incorrectly. If that is in fact the case, then I can adjust that later. We can come back and go, this rock, you can climb on that and it's way too easy. The rocks in Dome are kind of like such a pain point because, I tried to build them to the best of my ability, but like building objects like that, the one hard thing in video games is there's only really 2 types of collision. People don't really know this that don't make games, but there's only 2 types of collision. There's collision that you can walk up, and then there's walls. That's it. So it's like, if you have a piece of collision that's at like angled, right, not 100% vertically, but if it's like 999.99, a player can still walk up that, right? It's the whole, if you've ever walked up a mountain in Skyrim, right, you can just walk up that collision, because it's just collision detection in games is either a yes or a no. There's not really this shade of gray very often in games for collision objects. So that's where it's like, it can be really frustrating trying to fight that element of, I'm trying to make an object a certain way, right? I have an idea of how it's supposed to get made. I'm putting it all together that way, and then if it gets modified or changed, then all of a sudden it doesn't work. And then people are asking me, why did you do this? And all I can say is, well, I don't know what happened to it from the point at which I had touched the object last. So it can be, like you said, can be kind of frustrating in that element.
I remember having that conversation with you about Dome, actually, because there was a fiasco moment in I believe it was the semifinals.
It was Nemesis.
No, it was not Nemesis.
It was Fierce versus BTG.
Fierce versus BTG, because
oh my god!
The game, and one of the main things is on the jungle portions of Dome. And I remember talking to you about this, Zach, is that
Mm-hmm.
you did not design those walls as walls, and
Mm-hmm.
but they were made as full walls. So
Yeah.
what happened is they tried to wall charge out of a jungle position in Dome, which you cannot wall charge out of because the wall is not technically a wall.
Right. It was just, and this was something that that asset when it was made was when we white box a map, right? We had tested Dome a bunch, and those walls existed. What those were originally purposed for was supposed to be in front of doorways, like second floor doorways, to block so that you wouldn't just get shot walking through a door. And then somewhere along the way, somebody felt it was a good idea to just turn those into walls without requesting a special wall asset for Dome, and then we just never added that in, because it wasn't intended. It was supposed to be a blocker for it was just supposed to be a one-off. You're running on this pedestal or this upper floor, and there's a spot where you can take cover behind, and that's all it was ever supposed to be meant for. It was never supposed to be a wall, right? And so that's where that really shows that it's just like, ultimately the design of Dome could use in my opinion, a definite like redraft of some of the things, but that is a big undertaking right now, and like obviously we're focused on other things, but I do hope that we get to come back around and take another look at other maps, to try to clean and fix that, because we do have Factory V3 that's kind of getting thought about and how to improve that sort of stuff. But I do hope that we eventually get to work our way around back to Dome, just because I feel like personally Dome is a neat little map that you could make smaller updates to and still get more out of it, right? Additional rooms and that sort of stuff could be their own little patches and releases for like excitement and stuff, right? So I feel like Dome has a long runway. We just haven't gone down it yet. The plane's still just on the tarmac for Dome, and that's where it's like I feel like I hope that eventually we get to come back around for that.
Well, and I hope so, because I'm always continually excited whenever I see and or hear things, because I'm fortunate enough to be a cadet with the game, so I get to see a lot of the stuff that you guys are working on, and it's so impressive every time I get in there, because it looks better and it always feels better, and I always want people to see it beforehand, but I never know what I can say in that, just because of how amazing it is. And also, not only that, because Zach, you do art streams here, I believe, in the DPL Discord actually every once in a while, and those are always a fantastic joy to see and hang out in.
Yeah, I do always preface that too, just as we're bringing up that whenever I do have an art stream, it can be stuff that goes in the game. It could be exploratory, or I'm just trying to go through. And the one thing about that's kind of interesting to kind of touch back to how did I get into the games industry is, especially when I first started out, is I had no idea how games were made, and so it's funny because the person that kind of set me on the path, I had actually emailed. There's this lady that worked. At the time, I really loved BioWare games, and so I actually emailed. Yeah, well, I mean, just I was really they were my favorite company. That was developing games, and so I actually sent them an email. I was like, hey, I want to get into the industry, but I don't know what to do or how to approach this. I don't really have anybody like in my life that really knows that. My counselor in high school said I would have to move to Japan and probably learn Japanese to be able to work in the video games industry, right? I found that was a very funny like interaction in my life, because now I find out that the largest producer and developer of video games is actually the United States. So literally I didn't have to go anywhere. So, but it's still one of those things where you don't expect those things. So and at the time I didn't have really anybody to like turn to, right? I didn't know any game designers or, anybody that made video games. So I was kind of like left on my own to figure it out. And so I ended up emailing them, and the community manager there was nice enough to email me back. She's like, I talked to like a bunch of the artists and stuff, and this is what you're going to need to learn, and you're going to have to figure out a 3D program and do this and that and the other. And it was kind of funny because when I got my first job in the industry, I had emailed her back, and I just said, hey, I know it's like 4 years later and you probably don't remember who I am, but you sent me an email back for all my inquiries, and I followed them, and now I'm working in the video games industry, and I just wanted to thank you for that. So, I mean, if it wasn't for that community manager, which it sucks that my old email account that I had emailed her from I lost the password for it, and that got locked out, and so I don't have access to that anymore. But it's still a memory I'll carry with me forever, because it was so cool to have somebody just be able to give me at least a path forward, and that's what set me on my journey, you know. And so that's why I do the art streams, is because I never had anybody to show me how this stuff gets made. And that's one of the things that the video games industry has always had around, is this mystique of how a game is made.
Ooh,
right?
how does this work?
Everybody just is like, video game come out, right? It's easy to do. You know, they get kicked out every year or something like that. It's like, there is a symphony of people working on these games. It is a very collaborative experience. If you're not good with working with others, you're not going to make it in the games industry, right? Like, it is important to listen to the other people on your team, and to be able to take critiques from people, and be able to work with those people and figure out, like, one of the hardest things is, like, when you're working on, like, for the characters and stuff. We just had a character critique meeting the other day, and it's like, I don't mind getting a critique, but what I need to figure out when you're giving me a critique that's like, hey, you need to change this. I need to figure out what it is about the way that the thing is now that needs to get changed, right? Because that allows me to be able to figure out, you know, a solution, you know. And if you just say, this sucks and I don't like it, I don't know how to fix it, right? I need to know why you think it sucks, and what it is about the object that you're unhappy with, so that way I can formulate a plan to fix it, right? Which makes it really hard, because if I'm digging in like that, a lot of times it sounds like I'm being combative, or, you know, I don't want to change it. And that's not the case. It's like, I need to boil down, you know, the critique to what are the fundamentals of what needs to get fixed or changed. So that's one of the funny parts about that, is, like, you have to be really welcoming to you know, feedback or just negative response, right? So that's where, you know,
especially
really
in this
important.
community.
Well, I mean, it's games and passionate players just kind of go hand in hand, right? You wouldn't play the game if you weren't passionate about it, and that just breeds the fact of people can get upset or disappointed by changes or adaptations or modifications to a game that they enjoy. But I mean, a lot of times you have to remember, it's not like we do that to make you upset. We're doing it to either try something new or see if we can get a better result, you know. And sometimes it's the wrong choice. You know, people make mistakes, or people think a thing is going to work a certain way and it doesn't, you know. But then it's up to us to fix that, right? And so, like, that's the give and take, where it's, I mean, you saw that with Gunplay 2.0, right? It made the game feel better, right? But it wasn't the greatest for the gameplay, right? So there was this push and pull there of we tried to fix it, we tried to make it better, right? But hey, maybe it was a little overtuned, and that requires us to make adjustments and fix it. Now I mean, let's just be frank. Gunplay 3.0 came out, and it slaps, right? Kevin absolutely figured out everything he needed to figure out. You know, the animations got 10 times better. You know, the game just got better as a whole.
Kevin doing amazing work. I love him.
I'll be honest, I don't know if you can ever convince me that there's not just like I always feel sometimes like there's a poster of certain players up in the GEC office where it's just like, how do we piss them off this week? It's like this meeting, like Bard just sitting there is like, how do I fuck with Zombie? You know?
I don't think there's anything like that, but I mean, it's always a discussion on how to try to make the game better, right? That's the one thing about our game that really is a struggle is, you know, we need to make our gunplay. I mean, like, this is a first-person shooter. Our gun. What's a good way to put this? Our gunplay experience will never beat Siege or Call of Duty, or, you know, in terms of like the quality of the game, right? In terms of like how good it looks, right? Our game looks
okay. I was like,
like the
it's
way that
pretty
it
bad
is,
right
right?
now.
But we can try to contend in other areas, like having really good animations, right? Making the gunplay feel really, really good, right? I mean, it's kind of funny. I just have been going back and trying to play Battlefield recently. I was literally bored out of my skull because all of the guns shoot exactly the same.
Yes.
And I played Call of Duty too, and all the guns pretty much shoot exactly the same. And it is just the most boring gunplay experience I've ever had. And that's where it's like I'll play our game and actually have fun because the guns all act differently to a degree, right? And you can say, "Oh, well the new KR and some of the other weapons are really really strong." Well, you know, like everything else that we've seen with like Gunplay 2.0 into 3.0, it can transition and change, right? And get polished and modified. So, I mean, like it making games are no longer like when you had a Super Nintendo, right? Where you would make the game and that's it, and you would never once the game came out, it never changed ever again, right? Games now are much more fluid. They can get patched and modified and fixed up to a point in which they're really really polished or play really really well. So we're in that, which is a really cool part about making games now is you're never like you don't have to be done. But I mean, one of the things I do think that is something that is always important to not lose focus of, at least from my personal perspective, is once something is completed, you probably should put it down. You know, once it feels good enough, you don't have to touch it anymore. So, you know, that's just from my a methodology of design, especially for games, is you know, hone the blade until it's sharp, and then you can move to the next knife. You know, you don't have to keep sharpening an already sharpened knife. You know, so but if it's not cutting well, you might want to keep sharpening it, right? That's kind of like where I come from on that.
Yeah, absolutely understandable.
That's great. But I what I say about this, but I mean, one of the things is that like all the changes and and a lot of the community having this passion, and I mean, I talked about it a bit before this, is that with customization coming along, and a lot of there's some worries being said of blending into the background and all that stuff. And we can talk about that, and I definitely want to get your thoughts on this, like characters blending into the background, being hard to see,
Sure.
or hitboxes, but also really just like that the community feedback and in how you can process really what is good to process with the community feedback. The community is a bunch of masses, a bunch of usernames throwing stuff at you, and the company. And I was really wondering, like, how do you take something, let's say, as this thing is bad, change it, or this thing is good, don't change it, and kind of formulate that into something that's is shown.
Well,
It's kind of a two-part question there.
Sure. Well, let's kind of go. We'll tackle the community feedback first, which is the more community feedback from my perspective, again, is just the better, right? The more people talk about and discuss things and kind of work with us to figure things out, or just have overall good suggestions. I mean, that's the most important part, is for people to not just go game bad or gun bad. It's, hey, this gun doesn't feel very good to me. Here's the reasons why. Right? And I think that's the most important thing, is as long as the feedback is well thought out, we'll listen to it. Right? I mean, like I've stated this before, but the first thing I do when I wake up and the last thing I do when I go to sleep is I browse through the forums and I read everything. Right? Because it's important for me to stay up to date on what is the community unhappy with, or what are they happy with, what do they like. And granted, like I said, the coming from that point of passion, as all of us at the studio are video game players, right? We all play games. So I mean, like, and when you've been in the industry as long as I have, that most of the feedback you normally get is negative, right? Because it's people going, hey, I have a problem with this thing, I don't like it, and I want to let you know. And so it's like, I still think we have a great game. There's just elements and aspects that need to get improved. So you never take it as like a slight that you get negative feedback, right? You always use it as a positive of, hey, there's things that we can improve, right? And I wholly think that it's like there's plenty about our game that can get improved. and updated and fixed. So, like I said, we're in the era of games now where it can get improved and updated, and that's kind of what we just need to keep doing. I mean, we've made a good game that has a good foundation. We just need to keep polishing it and make it better, right? We have a raw gemstone. You don't just start out with a piece of jewelry. You have to make it that way. So, that's kind of what we're doing. We're still in early access. We have a good core fundamental, and we just need to continue to improve it to make it the best game that we possibly can, which is great. Customization is on the road to making it a more complete and full game. And that's why I'm so excited about that, because I mean, for the longest time, I have always felt from the moment that we released in early access, we needed to have customization and progression because it gives reasons for players to play. And that's for me was the most important thing, is because we're like, why do I play Destiny? I play it because the gunplay is super freaking good and there's shit that I get to collect, right? That is literally why I play that game, which I haven't played it for a while because they did a bunch of stuff in that game, which, again, games are fluid. They get changed. So it's like, if they make a bad change, doesn't mean you have to keep playing the game until they fix it, right? So, I mean, I'm on my I don't play Destiny right now stint because they did things to their game that I wasn't happy with, So, I mean, it happens in every game, right? There's a moment in which they do something that isn't great, and then it's like, well, I'll just wait until they fix it because we can do that now. But as for customization, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, speaking of games that you play, I was wondering, what games are you playing, and does that in the experiences that you take from the games that you play or you like, do you bring any of that into your work here at GAC and into the game at all, or?
Oh, absolutely. I've got my little retro setup. I've showed it off here before, not on this stream, but in a past stream. But like, I just picked up Mega Man X for Super Nintendo. Been playing the shit out of that. Great pixel art in that. I've got my OSS-C all hooked up, so I get to play it at 1080i or 1080p, and it's fantastic. Big screen, pixelized art, no blur, no nothing, super crisp. It's beautiful. I love it. So, I mean, yeah, I play a lot of games on the slide. I mean, recently, the last couple of weeks have not been as many games as I could want, just because I'm doing a lot of work on customization, which has kept me very busy. But, it's like I've been playing Battlefield just to go back and get back into those games, or a little bit of Call of Duty here or there. I'm really excited for Diablo 2 the Resurrected. I'm exceedingly excited about that game just because the art in that game is so beautiful, right? Been playing a lot of my retro games as well. I was playing Metroid the other day, and then Mega Man X just came in, so I'm gonna play that one for a little bit. So, lots of games. I enjoy playing them. Valheim's just coming out with their new Hearth and Home expansion, just came out, so super stoked on that. I gotta fire up my server again and go run around in there for a little bit. So, yeah, it's gonna be great. But going back to customization. All right. So off on the wild zombie tangent. Customization. It's. I know everybody has like these fears of, oh my god, they're gonna make a character that's just all dark colors, no saturation, and they're gonna be like Batman, and just walk up and assassinate me. That is literally the farthest thing from the truth that we can do. We're trying to treat like dark colors like that, especially like a black leather or that sort of element is more of like a minor accessory. Like a belt can be black. That's fine. That doesn't change like the fact that they're wearing a bright red jacket, right? And so that's one of those things where it's like, as long as we're controlling the colors and the amount of saturation that's in those elements, I really do feel like we have a lot of control over how the game is going to look. And because one of the things we've been really trying to do, especially with the new tile set that's getting worked on, and the new and Dome was like the first kind of test bed, and even Factory to a degree, is like the backgrounds, especially in the play space, are a lot more muted. They're a lot more desaturated. What's going on?
Sorry, and Batman, and I'm losing it. I had to message Donut because what I'm thinking about now is like the scariest thing would be this dude in just like a gimp suit in the corner with a Kruger with the lights out. That would just be fucking terrifying.
Exactly, and that's the thing, that's the main goal that we really want to avoid is just the all black gimp suit, right?
No.
So that's a really important thing that we need to avoid, right? And that is the thing on the forefront, especially when I'm developing characters and building stuff out. That is the thing on the front of my mind, which is, does this read as a enemy? Like number one, like when I look at the colors on this character, do I see it, right? And we will run into customization that might blend in, right? I'm working on a piece that, Ozzy, he tested it and he's like, yo, on this map, this really blends in here. We might have to change that color. And it was like, okay, well, that's fine. We can do that. That's not that big of a deal to me that we would have to do that. So just as long as we know that it's like, hey, if a customization piece really is causing issues and it's getting reported as such, we will fix it, right? We will make changes or adjustments or figure out a way to fix it. So, but definitely, like, as I build these objects and items and elements, it is really, really important that we keep the characters identifiable. And that's largely based on color. Which hopefully, as we move forward, eventually we'll be able to do, and this is something now that customization will come in, we could actually set up a series of textures for colorblind mode in the future, which we could not do that until we set this up. So that is a hope to me that we can eventually just set that up as you select this and then the characters, no matter what torso or whatever you set, there is a set of colors applied to those characters, which would be really, really helpful for anybody that needed more accessibility. So, I mean, all of these things are on my mind as I build this stuff, right? And if you ever watch the streams in the DPL channel, I do it over there just because it's people that actually like really are interested in the game normally migrate over to DPL. Just because I had a lot of problems just doing it on the normal Discord channel with just
problems.
too many people, just way too many people, and it just turned into a very like rambunctious channel where like nothing could really get done. So I shifted over there just because it's like the more dedicated players normally, while it can get a little bit raucous, isn't as crazy as just like an open channel for the entire 6,000 plus or 12,000 plus community.
they see Gek member in chat and then like one joins and all of them join.
Yes, it's like moths to a flame. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You work on game? Oh, let me ask a question. About something that you have no like department over.
Yeah, and I don't mind trying to answer questions based off of my understanding of what's going on with the game, but at the same token, I can't answer every question. You know, this is not a possibility. So
just respond with skill issue all the time. That's become my regular go-to thing.
Got it.
It's a skill issue, honestly.
You're just not good enough. Why don't you like Josh?
Yeah, be Josh. Don't be a donut.
Oh, wait, it's better than you.
But yeah, to pull us back on that topic of customization, it is really like, as we've seen. So the way that customization kind of came about was we did want to have it. We always wanted to have something like that, but I initially was tasked with building a foundation for us to be able to lay out what is customization in our game. And so that when I was first divvied that task of make characters that will be able to be customized, right? I had to really sit down and think about like, how do we need to set things up? How is this all going to like interweave and work together of these parts that can get customized, right? How do I make it so that it isn't just this giant mess of geometry, right? Like, and it has a much higher level of refinement and look and just overall just feels really, really good. And so it took, I think it took me about 2.5 months. This is when I kind of first got to the studio and they were talking to me about reworking the characters just in general from their prototype art version to a more polished, finalized version. A big challenge was trying to keep what the characters originally looked like in a lot of the old art, but like transition that into a much more polished piece. right? A finalized version of what is this visualization. And so, yeah, it took a lot of time to kind of sit down and go, okay, well, I need to make a set of torso, like a torso set, and then a leg set, and then like, where do I cut the head and apply all that sort of stuff? And then like, how will hair work? How will all these other accessories work with stuff, right? And a lot of that came from just like making a standardized set of rules, right? Like the characters aren't bigger or smaller; they're all the same size, right? Like they all started from like a similar. I modeled out a basic character, legs, torso, head, and built them from there. And like made sure all the head sizes were the same because that wasn't a thing when I first got to the studio. So, making sure that then anybody could wear the same hat or have the same hair, right? And so we kind of got all that kind of set up in that regard, right? So that's kind of like what kind of set that task out. And then again, going through and polishing the art style from what it was originally and what it had kind of transitioned to now, right? Because like all the characters used to be like action figures and they were all these parts and it was like this mishmash and there was no good way to like put X part with Y part when they're all made of this jumble of stuff. It would have been so hard to do customization that way. And so it was much easier to think about it like containers, right? You have the leg container and then you have like the torso container. And then the nice thing about the system and building the characters the way that I did was we just decided, hey, we want to have customizable gloves now. Okay, cool. We can do that. So now we have a hand container, right? And now you can just change the gloves on the fly, however you want. So all of those elements being able to come in together and building just this really flexible system and how it will work together with itself. And as long as, we follow there's a small set of rules that just exist. And as long as we kind of follow those, we'll be in great shape, right? And so that's kind of where we find ourselves now is that, everything's kind of been established in. We've got the naming conventions are all set up. Like the back patches all work and emblems and stuff are in. Yeah.
Tell us about the back patches. Because a lot of people really originally thought it'd be like character skins and
so
like whatever.
So how did so emblems how did they come about was when I was first making stuff. I always wanted to have like more control over, just more expression to the characters than just here's my legs, here's my torso. And when I really started thinking about it, I was like, well, it'd be kind of neat that you could express yourself through like an image, right? And much like Counter-Strike back in the day, you would have your spray paint and you could just spray it all over the place. Well, what if that was like your character's like logo, right? And so I kind of thought, hey, what if we just had a little 30 by 32 image? I mean, it happens in Battlefield too. You could make your own image, which I think for us, we want to control that more. So we will have a select set, which we can always add more to, but I really would be worried about giving just players the ability to make their own patches. It can go
100%.
100 like that for all the best intentions you might have. It goes south real quick. So I think having a more stringent control over that is important, which, yes, stifles some creativity, but at the same time, it's like you'll find an image that speaks to you and that you can add onto your character. So that was the main thing, is just making these back patches like kind of neat and then just going from there. So we'll have that as the emblem system is just kind of like, hey, if you and your team want to get together and be the tunnel snakes and have the snake patch on your back and have it be your whole thing and that's your team's identity, then go for it, right? And that's the cool part, because you can name your team, you can put your emblems on, you can set up your customization the way you want. It feels really natural to what the game is, and the amount of expression that we're getting out of just the customization that we have just right now is really, really high. And so, I mean, just watching in some of our testing that we've done with the system in its functionality has been amazing to just watch the different combinations of people putting stuff together of just what they want. from day to day. The last 2 weeks I played in the customization system, I think I've spent about like 8 hours each day, just, or like for the week, just dorking around in the customization system, just to check to see if everything's working, but just what combos work. What can I make? And it's really, really fun, just doing that. So, yeah, I'm excited for you guys to get your hands on it. Like I said, it's been a labor of love for me for the last 3 years. I've been working on characters and stuff for this game a lot of times in the off hours. Just making more outfits, making more customization, building things, because it's just, I knew that if I literally would have done nothing and just did the bare bones 3 outfits plus the outfits that we had made previously when we were first talking about customization, and that was like, we wanted to have customization prior to early access, but then that kind of got pushed to the side. But we had made a bunch of outfits for it, for especially like on the Defender side. But I knew that we would need more than that. That it just wouldn't have been enough. So I've just been toiling away for the last 2 years, waiting for customization to become a thing, but just building and building and building more and more things and making more back patches and doing all this sort of stuff just on the spare time, just because I knew we would need it. We would not have the amount of stuff that we have now if I had not done that. So it's kind of nice for that. Yeah, it's kind of nice to finally, like, all that time that I've invested and poured into this system, just because I wanted to see it work, to see it now actually, like, having life breathed into it, from all the way from Kevin doing animations and Ben setting up icons and Valdis doing alternate color shift textures and Matt doing code on the back end, and just the whole team is all just working for this one system that I had dreamed about 3 years ago, finally building it into functionality, right? Braxton, our new guy, is just killing it, right, on all this stuff.
Lasercat,
Lasercat just absolutely, is a code wizard. Yes, absolutely. But like, I mean, everybody is just slaying this thing. And again, like, it's been my dream to have this system put into the game. So and now that it's finally happening, it's just killer. It's so exciting. So, I mean, I every day I have to contain my excitement over how cool this is going to be when it comes out. And I really, really, like, from the bottom of my heart, hope you guys enjoy it, and that, and that it doesn't ruin the game. Like, it is a fear that you're, like you said, it's like there could be this object that just literally makes the game unplayable, right? Like, hey, if you put this combination on, you become invisible and game terrible now. So that is a worry, but, like, again, it is something that has been a focus. So it is my uttermost hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't foresee it. I've worked in this industry a lot of times. I can hear an idea or a concept or look at things and go, well, that's never going to work. But, like, I'm not getting that sense around this system, just because a lot of thought got put into this on the front end, which is making everything on this end is a lot easier to now that we're getting down to the towards the end of the dev cycle on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I honestly, I think you are. It's so inspiring to me to hear how excited you are about us getting our hands on this, and I personally can't wait. It's one thing I continually look forward to whenever, every time I see an update, I'm like, oh god, I hope this is it. But
either this,
going forward from that,
something.
I don't know if you could tell us this, but if there was a single thing out of customization, like a single item that, like, is your favorite, could you tell us what that is?
Man, I mean, there's,
like, I know it's like trying to pick your favorite kid.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
Okay, so there is a series of masks that I've been making that you can put over and again, I just want to preface that customization for this first iteration of customization, right? We've gone through 3 iterations on gunplay now, right? So for this first iteration of customization, it's gonna lean really defender heavy. That does not mean we will not come back around to the attackers.
The one customization update.
The one
imagine.
customization probably that's going to be the most fun that I think people are going to get a kick out of is I made this one mask that's pretty funny. I think people will kind of understand what it is later.
Wait,
The other
the
thing
mask
I ended
I'm
up
thinking of?
maybe I don't know
Oh,
if it is, but
hope it
there's
is. I
another
hope it
one
is.
that yeah, there's another one that I kind of reworked. The attackers have 3 outfits, right? And the primary, the cool thing that's coming down the pipe, which you guys haven't seen, is that I kind of went back and retooled the attacker, the very first outfit, and I reworked the second outfit to give them a higher tier of polish. Um, so I'm really excited for you guys to actually play with those. It isn't like a huge change. Like you probably won't really notice it unless you really look. But just I because those characters, the attacker outfit 1 and 2 were kind of the first ones that I had ever done. They were kind of like comparatively through everything that I've learned over the last 3 years when I came back to them. Um, they weren't a lot of it is like again learning the style and how to when I first started working at Giant Enemy Crab, I didn't know anything about normal maps or
Mhm.
how to effectively manipulate metalness and like specular maps, right? I knew about them, I knew how to make them, but I didn't know how to tweak them perfectly, right? Which that was kind of comes back to learning the style, right? And so now I can paint a normal map by hand and know exactly what all of the colors do and all this sort of stuff and the proper values to get Unity to properly make metalness and roughness maps and specular maps look correct. A lot of that was me learning. And so now that I have all this knowledge and experience through working on the project, I kind of went back through and have revamped those characters, and they're 10 times better than what they were before. So I'm really excited to get those set up for you guys, for you to see what you guys think about the new designs on that. The second tier outfit, I know when I first made it, I was just like, I just need to make another outfit that's like the first one. And so now I kind of took that idea and developed it a little bit further to try to get something that looked even better. And when you do the reloads and stuff with the new arms and the animation and everything, it looks pretty freaking cool. So I am excited for you guys to check out the new attackers, even though the attacker side will be a little bit more sparse than the defense. The idea will be is when we move to customization like a 2.0, that will be more attacker focused. So, but
Very
man,
exciting.
I mean, I did the calculations kind of, and this was before I just added in another suite of character customization items. I think we were up to like in terms of combination was like 3,000 combinations of different things that you can put on your character and not look the same. I mean, with having 4 characters and like 50 head objects in total, and like 12 or 13, 12 different body torsos, right? That you could just pick from 12 or 12 legs and the color variants on those. I mean, you're looking at thousands of combinations. So,
I'm excited for all the weird stuff that people bring up.
oh yeah, I can't
But
wait to see the absolute fiesta that some people make, which is going to be hilarious. But I mean, again, a lot of it, I know that people are again worried about colors. It's like, yeah, but you're still playing with color corrected characters. Like we've paid attention to at least like this needs to be at this saturation, right? We're playing with mostly these hues, right? And so I don't foresee there being a lot of problems.
yeah,
I'll be
Again,
honest.
if things pop up and being an issue, we will modify it and change it. So
I just look forward to making the most visually obnoxious character possible.
I've been saying for I
absolutely.
don't know how long. I want and you gave me a clown suit, just complete balls to the wall, whatever I can get it to, you know. If it's tactically like worse, who cares?
Well,
You
I mean,
know.
you don't
Well,
do anything
yeah.
anyway, Donut. You're just gonna eat
No.
shots anyways. You're already looking like a
Okay,
clown.
Mr. Glorified door opener.
Hey, you know, that's I open doors to a higher level than you could ever imagine.
Well, I have nothing else for you, Zach. Zombie, do you have anything? Actually, I have one thing I want to say before we end. Do you have any, like fun stories from Gek or from just playing the game? That you can tell. Any funny stories, at least, to say.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, like, I can say that this game has indeed, like, through my entire time of like playing video games and stuff and doing that sort of thing, like, I can say that Due Process did give me one of the best experiences that I've ever had, which was back in the alpha days when we were still having a lot of new players and stuff. We were I was playing with like a lot of the alpha testers and stuff, and ended up in this one round. I ended up getting a door charge and clacker, and just 5K'd a team on a green door with the door charge and clacker. It was it was just one of those hands raised in the air, just screaming, just like, oh my god, it worked! Yes, 5K, one shot, round over within like a minute and like 30 seconds. Just blew them up. And it was funny because they had a video. Posted from their perspective, and sadly I didn't have my stream recording at the time. But they had a video of them like running up to the door, and then it blows up, and they're like, "What the fuck happened? Who put the door charge on the green door?" And they were just like, "Yo, he picked up the door charging clacker from last round and blew us up." And then they all started laughing. Oh my god, shit like that is a great. The other one is there's a video of Pion somewhere where he was playing and he's working his way through arcade, and I made this arcade cabinet specifically with this purpose in mind, but nobody had ever talked about it or said anything about it. But finally, like, because I built the Fatal Fighter arcade cabinet, which has the dude on the side, which is, I mean, it is a riff off of the old Street Fighter 2 arcade cabinet, and obviously Mortal Kombat. That's kind of why I smashed that together to make this arcade cabinet. But the whole intention was is that when you round a corner and you see that dude, you put rounds into it because it scares the hell out of you. You think it's a guy. That was like the whole purpose, is supposed to make this like dangerous place where there could be fake things set up, right? And the fact that there was a video of Pion when he rounds this corner and puts like 5 rounds into the arcade cabinet and just starts busting up laughing and then gets killed because like the fucking arcade cabinet absolutely bamboozled him. And it's even in one of the trailers for Due Process. Somebody was firing into arcade and they put like 4 rounds into the arcade, the Fatal Fighter arcade cabinet. So every time that happens, great. You can think of me just laughing in the background at you because I did it on purpose, right? Like that was the whole intention, and it freaking works. And it took me 2 years for me to bamboozle myself. Because of because I was just like, every time I would enter into arcade, I'd be like, that damn cabinet, don't shoot it, right? Look for the moving targets or whatever. And like a year back or something like that, I was running through arcade and just put 2 rounds into my own arcade cabinet and just started laughing because I got myself, right? So that's probably one of the funnest like experiences for Due Process that I've had. I mean, there's just been amazing experiences up and down just working for this studio. I mean, getting to go to, the different PAX expos and just meeting people that just were like super stoked on the game, or, you'd be talking about the game and waiting in line and chit-chatting with people, and just like how much they absolutely just were totally blown away with it and that sort of stuff. And then like 3rd day into the expo, you're seeing the same people coming back around into the line just because they're enjoying it so much, like that's really, really cool. And I mean our community is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I know that there's dramas here and there and whatever, like any community that exists in games, right? But like I really do think that the community we have for this game is really special. And I enjoy having, like, I get to every weekend when DPL is on, or there's some sort of tournament now. Like I see the announcement on Discord, and I pop it on my TV, and I'll be making breakfast or something, and getting to watch Due Process League. And you guys have just done such a great job in getting great commentators and stuff. It's just really heartwarming, to have the community that we have.
Well, and you are one of the great commentators. But now
That's true.
I have to ask a serious question. I need to know who made the DDR machines.
I don't know who actually made them off the top of my head. It's probably Ben or Jesse, I would assume.
I need to know, and I need to know who put them into the KKR room. I need this information.
I mean, I guess it's probably Sandwich.
I know, but
who made the room? I don't know who made the original machines. Like I said, it's probably Ben, would be my assumption, but it could be Jesse. That was before those machines came in prior to me getting here. We did a pass where we added a couple extra machines later, and that's where I got to do the Fatal Fighter one and stuff. So I mean, man, I'd love to make some more. If we ever do a revamp on C-Star, it'd be fun to do a couple more arcade cabinets and stuff. That'd be really fun. Think of some different.
And then next thing is whenever we get back to doing events in person, is I think I need to put this out here in a public forum. I think the best thing is if we could cast the casual games that happen at whatever showcase you guys go to. That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh! Man, I mean, have you ever seen the casual cast of the DreamHack video? Oh my god!
That's the funniest. Okay, I don't know if can post it. It's the best video ever. It's hilarious.
Oh, dude, I've never laughed so hard in my life. Oh yeah, that's where Sad Kebby comes from. That image in particular is from that event where you're just looking at the look of absolute horror on his face, right? That's the one thing about Kevin is like he's probably one of the most expressive people I've ever met. So he, how he feels is very representative about how he looks, right? So yeah, it was utter shock and horror, which was just the most entertaining thing. It just made it was so fun. That DreamHack event was so much fun.
It was great because you sent me that video because I crashed your art stream, and then somehow we got 5 people to go play League of Legends. And,
yes, that was hilarious.
It was
so bad, dude. It's so bad. Oh, but
no, we had a good time, and then that's the thing is like when I do play games, I just want to unwind and have some fun and play games, and it does not matter win or loss or whatever. Oh, the other game I'm playing right now, because they just showed the reveal for it. I'm going back through and playing Dead Space because it's one of the very few horror games that I absolutely adore.
They are
I'm going back there and playing that game, and still gets me. I knew I was like, I'm standing in the very first room. I know exactly what's gonna happen. Still got me. Right? Still scared as hell. So that game still holds up. Super good game.
I'm terrified and I refuse to play that game because I'm a bitch.
It's so good. I'm not a horror game player, but that game is on a whole nother level. It's so well done.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm out of questions. Zombie, do you have anything else? Tetra, if you want to come out of your little hole.
No, we don't allow the British to speak here. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Zach. Scuffcast.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
If you have any shout-outs or anything, let's shout them out now. But other than that,
my shout-out is just when customization comes out, hit me up with some messages and let me know how it is. If it needs to get improved or changed, make sure you guys are just logging those bug reports and stuff because it's gonna let the team know how what you guys think. That's the main thing. That's all I can really shout out because like I said, love our community and we want to hear what you guys think about the game at every aspect or facet. So we might not be able to enact the changes that you want on the immediate, but I mean they're getting logged and definitely are being thought about of what we can do in the future. So
most definitely. Well, thank you very much. I believe that is all from us over here at the DPL Podcast. We'll see you soon with hopefully a special guest. But other than that, the DPL Major is this weekend. Good luck to all the teams. And if you want to catch the first game, I believe the first game happens this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So check that out when that comes along. But other than that, thank you. 1 p.m. Eastern. It says 12 p.m. on the announcement.
Oh, well, you know what? We'll figure that out.
Well,
Very
come out when
we are.
Come
Keep
and check
an
us
eye out
out.
for the announcements.
Yeah, we'll. But thank you to everyone who came and watched. Thank you so much to Zach for taking time out of his day to be on this, and thank you to Tetra for doing production. I am MrDoughnut. That's Zombie Bacon, and that is our show.